Chapter 1. You're broke, and it's not because of your circumstances. Right now, you're probably thinking about all the external reasons why you don't have money. Your job doesn't pay enough, the economy is bad, you didn't get the right opportunities, you started with nothing. And while some of those factors might be real, they're not the primary reason you're struggling financially. The primary reason is between your ears. Here's why this matters. Two people can have identical circumstances, same income, same expenses, same opportunities, and one builds wealth while the other stays broke. The difference isn't luck. It's not intelligence. It's mindset. And mindset is the invisible operating system that determines whether every dollar you earn builds your future or just passes through your hands. Let me show you what's really happening. You have beliefs about money that you didn't consciously choose. They came from your parents, your childhood experiences, your first encounters with financial stress. Maybe you learned that money is scarce and hard to keep. Maybe you learned that rich people are greedy. Maybe you learned that you're not the kind of person who has money. These beliefs run automatically beneath your awareness, sabotaging every attempt at wealth. Pay attention to this part. Right now, your financial results are a perfect reflection of your money mindset. Not your effort, not your intelligence, your mindset. If you believe money is hard to keep, you unconsciously find ways to spend it. If you believe wealth isn't for people like you unconsciously avoid opportunities. If you believe money creates problems, you unconsciously stay broke to avoid those problems. Here's what makes poor mindset so dangerous. It's invisible to you. You don't think, I have limiting beliefs about money. You just notice that money always seems to slip away. You just find yourself making decisions that keep you stuck. You just feel like wealth is for other people. The beliefs operate beneath conscious thought, which is exactly what makes them powerful. Most people never examine their money mindset because they don't realize mindset is optional. They think their thoughts about money are observations about reality rather than interpretations they're choosing. But every belief you have about money is just a thought you've practiced so many times it feels like truth. And thoughts can be changed. This is where things change. Rich mindset isn't about being born into wealth or having perfect circumstances. It's about holding beliefs about money that enable wealth creation. Beliefs like, money is a tool I can learn to use, wealth is available to people who create value, and I can figure out what I don't know. These beliefs drive behaviors that accumulate wealth over time. Think about someone who believes money is scarce versus someone who believes money flows to those who provide value. The first person hoards, fears loss, and avoids risk. The second person invests, seeks opportunity, and takes calculated risks. Same economic environment, completely different behaviors, totally different results. Not because of circumstances, because of beliefs. Here's the shift you need to make immediately. Stop treating your thoughts about money as facts. Start treating them as software you can update. That voice saying, I'll never get ahead, isn't truth. It's programming based on old data. That feeling that wealth isn't for you, it's not reality, it's conditioning. And conditioning can be changed. But there's a critical point here. Changing your money mindset isn't about lying to yourself with affirmations. It's not about pretending to believe things you don't. It's about examining what you currently believe, questioning whether it's actually true, and consciously choosing more useful beliefs based on evidence rather than emotion. Most people resist mindset work because it feels abstract compared to concrete tactics. They want to know what to do with their money, not how to think about it. But here's what they miss. What you do flows from how you think. Fix the thinking and the doing fixes itself. Skip the thinking and you'll sabotage every tactic you learn. Here's what happens when you start examining your money beliefs. First, you notice patterns you've never questioned. You realize you've been operating from assumptions you inherited, not chose. Second, you feel resistance. These beliefs are comfortable even when they're limiting. Third, you start testing new beliefs. And fourth, you notice different results because different beliefs drive different actions. And here's the part that changes everything. Once you rewire your money mindset, opportunities you couldn't see before become obvious. Strategies that seemed impossible become doable. Actions that felt terrifying become natural. Not because the world changed, because your perception changed. And perception determines what you see, what you attempt, and what you achieve. So here's what you do starting right now. Finish this sentence honestly. Money is. Whatever comes out first is one of your core beliefs about money. Write it down. Then ask, is this absolutely true? Where did this belief come from? Does it serve my goals? This simple exercise reveals the invisible programming running your financial life. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people would rather believe their financial struggles are about circumstances beyond their control than admit their mindset is the primary obstacle. Because if it's circumstances, they're off the hook. If it's mindset, they have to do the uncomfortable work of changing how they think. And most people choose comfortable victimhood over uncomfortable responsibility. The question you need to answer is this: are you willing to examine beliefs you've held your entire life and potentially discover they're wrong? Because that examination is where wealth mindset begins. Without it, every strategy you learn will eventually fail because your underlying programming will sabotage execution. What's coming next will expose the first specific belief difference between rich mindset and poor mindset. Chapter 2. Poor mindset sees money as something that happens to you. Rich mindset sees money as something you create. And this single distinction, whether you believe you're a victim of financial circumstances or an architect of financial outcomes, determines whether you'll ever build wealth. Here's why this matters. When you believe money happens to you, you're passive. You wait for raises, hope for opportunities, and react to whatever financial situation you're in. But when you believe you create money through value creation, you're active. You seek ways to provide value, build skills that increase your earning capacity, and take responsibility for generating income. Let me show you what's really happening. Poor mindset wakes up and asks, what will happen to me financially today? Rich mindset wakes up and asks, what value can I create today that someone will pay for? Same day, completely different framing, totally different actions. One is reactive. The other is proactive. And proactive people create wealth while reactive people just manage whatever comes their way. Pay attention to this part. Every dollar in circulation exists because someone created value that another person was willing to pay for. Wealth isn't a fixed pie where someone else having more means you have less. Wealth is created constantly through value creation. And if you're not creating value, you're not creating wealth. You're just hoping someone gives you some of the wealth others created. Here's what makes victim mindset so limiting. It focuses your attention on what you can't control: the economy, your employer's decisions, market conditions, other people's choices. And focusing on what you can't control produces helplessness. But focusing on what you can control, the value you create, the skills you build, the problems you solve, produces agency. And agency is what creates wealth. Most people adopt victim mindset because it's comfortable. If your financial situation is someone else's fault, your employers, the economies, the systems, then you're not responsible for changing it. You can complain, feel justified, and stay stuck while maintaining moral high ground. But that comfort costs you your financial future. This is where things change. Rich mindset recognizes that while you can't control all circumstances, you can control your response to circumstances. You can't control the job market, but you can control what skills you build. You can't control the economy, but you can control what value you offer. That shift from what's happening to me to what am I creating is the foundation of wealth building. Think about two people who lose their jobs. Poor mindset says, this happened to me. The economy is bad. Jobs are scarce. I'm a victim. Rich mindset says, this happened. What value can I create that people need? What problem can I solve? What opportunity does this create? The first person is passive, waiting for another job. The second person is active, creating value. 6 months later, their situations are radically different. Here's the shift you need to make. Stop asking, how can I get more money? Start asking, what value can I create that people will pay for? The first question produces entitlement. The second produces entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship, in the broadest sense of creating value, is what builds wealth. But there's a psychological resistance here. Accepting that you create money means accepting responsibility for not having it. It means admitting that your current financial state isn't just something that happened to you, it's something you participated in creating through your choices and beliefs. That's uncomfortable. It's easier to blame circumstances. Most people won't shift to creator mindset because it removes their excuses. If money is something you create through value, then not having money means you're not creating enough value. And that reality feels harsh. But harsh truth that you can act on is more useful than comfortable fiction that keeps you stuck. Here's what happens when you adopt creator mindset. First, you start noticing opportunities to create value everywhere. Problems become potential income streams. Skills become marketable assets. Every interaction becomes a chance to provide value someone might pay for. Second, you take action on those opportunities instead of waiting for someone to give you money. Third, you generate income from sources beyond your job because you're creating value beyond your employment. And fourth, you develop genuine financial security because your income isn't dependent on one employer. It's dependent on your ability to create value. And here's the part that changes everything. When you believe you create money through value creation, losing a job isn't a catastrophe, it's a transition. Economic downturns aren't disasters. They're market shifts where different value is needed. You stop being fragile and become anti-fragile because your financial security is based on your capacity to create value, not on specific circumstances staying stable. So here's what you do starting today. Identify one problem that people around you have. Then ask, could I create a solution for this problem that people would pay for? Not, is this the perfect business idea? Just, could I create value here? Then test it. Offer to solve that problem for one person for money. You're not changing your whole life. You're proving to yourself that you can create value that generates income. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people will spend their entire lives waiting for someone to give them money, an employer, the government, luck. They'll never attempt to create value that generates income. And they'll wonder why wealth seems available to others but not to them. Because others learn to create while they only learn to receive. The question you need to answer is this. Do you want to spend your life hoping someone gives you money, or do you want to learn to create value that generates money? Because one mindset keeps you dependent on others' decisions. The other mindset makes you the decision maker. And only decision makers build wealth. What's coming next reveals the second critical belief difference about risk and safety. Chapter 3. Poor mindset seeks safety. Rich mindset seeks opportunity. And this difference in what you're optimizing for, safety versus opportunity, determines whether you'll build wealth or just survive. Here's why this matters. Safety and opportunity often require opposite behaviors. Safety says keep your stable job, avoid risk, protect what you have. Opportunity says invest in growth, take calculated risks, build assets. And if you're always choosing safety, you're systematically avoiding the very actions that create wealth. Let me show you what's really happening. Poor mindset sees the world as dangerous and resources as scarce. So every decision is about protection. Protect your job, protect your savings, protect what little you have. But that protective crouch prevents growth. You can't build wealth while in a defensive position because wealth building requires offense. Investing, starting businesses, taking risks that might not work. Pay attention to this part. The safest financial choice in the short term is often the riskiest choice in the long term. Keeping all your money in a savings account feels safe today, but inflation erodes purchasing power over time. Staying in a stable job feels secure, but if that job disappears, you have no other income sources. What feels like safety is often just delayed risk. Here's what makes safety obsession so limiting. It keeps you focused on avoiding loss rather than creating gain. Your entire financial strategy becomes defensive. Don't lose your job, don't lose your savings, don't make mistakes. But wealth isn't built by playing defense. It's built by playing offense. And offense requires taking risks that safety-minded people avoid. Most people choose safety over opportunity because loss hurts more than missing gain. This is loss aversion, and it's why people keep money in accounts earning nothing rather than investing where they might lose some. The emotional pain of losing $1,000 is stronger than the emotional pleasure of gaining $1,000. So they optimize to avoid pain rather than to create gain. This is where things change. Rich mindset understands that risk and reward are inseparable. You cannot build significant wealth without taking risks. But risk doesn't mean reckless, it means calculated. It means taking action despite uncertainty, learning from what doesn't work, and adjusting. The question isn't whether to take risks. It's which risks are worth taking. Think about two people with $10,000 saved. Poor mindset keeps it in a savings account earning 0.1% because it's safe. Rich mindset invests in an index fund that might fluctuate but averages 8% over time. 30 years later, the first person has about $10,300. The second person has about $100,000. The safe choice cost $90,000 over time. That's not safety, that's expensive fear. Here's the shift you need to make. Stop asking, what's the safest choice? Start asking, what's the best risk-adjusted opportunity? You're not eliminating risk evaluation, you're adding opportunity evaluation. And often, the highest risk is taking no risk because that guarantees you'll never build significant wealth. But there's a psychological challenge here. Taking financial risks feels dangerous, especially if you grew up with scarcity. Your brain is wired to protect what you have, not to risk it for potential gain. That wiring served your ancestors when resources were truly scarce. But in an economy where wealth is created through value exchange and investment, that wiring keeps you broke. Most people won't embrace calculated risk because they've seen risk produce loss. They know someone who started a business and failed. They know someone who invested and lost money. What they don't see are the countless people who took similar risks, learned from failures, adjusted, and eventually succeeded. They only see the failures that quit, not the failures that led to success. Here's what happens when you shift from safety to opportunity seeking. First, you feel fear because you're doing things that could result in loss. That's normal. Second, you take calculated risks and some don't work out. You learn from those experiences. Third, you take adjusted risks based on learning. And fourth, you eventually succeed at levels impossible when you were playing it safe. And here's the part that changes everything. Once you've taken calculated risks and survived, even when some don't work out, fear loses its power over you. You stop avoiding opportunities because they feel risky. You start evaluating opportunities based on potential upside, not fear of downside. And that shift in decision-making is what creates extraordinary results. So here's what you do starting this week. Identify one financial opportunity you've been avoiding because it feels risky. Maybe it's investing, maybe it's starting a side business, maybe it's learning a skill that could increase income. Then take the smallest possible step toward that opportunity. Not all or nothing, just a small, calculated test. Learn whether your fear is based on actual risk or just conditioned avoidance. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The financial strategy you're using, playing it safe, avoiding risk, protecting what little you have, is the same strategy broke people have used forever. It feels responsible, but it guarantees mediocrity. Rich people use a different strategy. Take calculated risks, invest in growth, and accept that some attempts won't work. And that strategy, over time, produces wealth. The question you need to answer is this. What are you more afraid of? Taking calculated risks now that might not work out, or reaching the end of your life and realizing you played it too safe to ever succeed? Because both involve loss. One is temporary and educational. The other is permanent and regretful. What's coming next reveals the third belief difference about time and money. Chapter 4. Poor mindset trades time for money. Rich mindset builds assets that generate money. And this distinction, whether you're selling hours or building systems, determines whether you'll ever escape the cycle of trading your life for income. Here's why this matters. Time is your most finite resource. You only have 24 hours per day, and you need some of those for sleep, health, and relationships. If your only strategy for making money is trading time for it, you've put a ceiling on your earning potential that you can never break through. Let me show you what's really happening. Poor mindset thinks about income in terms of hours and wages. I make $25 per hour. If I work more hours, I make more money. This seems logical, but it's a trap. Because there's a maximum number of hours you can work. And when those hours run out, due to exhaustion, age, or life circumstances, your income potential ends. Pay attention to this part. Rich mindset thinks about income in terms of assets and systems. How can I build something that generates income without my direct time investment? This might be investments, businesses, intellectual property, or any system that produces income whether you're working or not. That shift from time for money to assets generating money is the difference between being employed and being wealthy. Here's what makes time for money thinking so limiting. It keeps you on a treadmill. You work, you get paid. You stop working, the money stops. There's no compounding, no leverage, no multiplication. Your income is always directly proportional to hours worked. And hours worked is capped by biology and time. Most people never escape time for money thinking because it's all they've seen. Their parents did it. Everyone around them does it. School prepared them for it. Get good grades so you can get a good job where you trade time for money at a higher rate. But that path, no matter how high the rate, never leads to wealth. It leads to comfortable employment at best. This is where things change. Building wealth requires creating income streams that aren't tied to your time. This doesn't mean quit your job tomorrow. It means begin building something, investments, a business, digital products, rental income, that can generate money while you sleep. Start small but start. Think about someone who earns $100,000 per year working full-time versus someone who earns $100,000 per year from investments and businesses that don't require their constant presence. They have the same income but completely different lives. The first person can't stop working without losing income. The second person has freedom because income continues whether they work or not. Here's the shift you need to make. Stop thinking, how can I earn more per hour? Start thinking, how can I create income that isn't tied to my hours? This might mean learning to invest, building a side business, creating digital products, buying rental property, or any strategy that divorces income from time. But there's a psychological barrier here. Building assets requires time and effort up front with no immediate income. Trading time for money gives immediate results. Work today, get paid this week. That immediate feedback is psychologically satisfying. Building assets means investing time today for potential income months or years from now. Most people can't delay gratification that long. Most people won't build assets because it feels slower than just working more hours. If you need money this month, getting a second job provides immediate income. Building an investment portfolio or business provides nothing immediately. So they choose immediate over eventual, even though immediate keeps them trapped while eventual creates freedom. Here's what happens when you shift from time for money to asset building. First, progress feels frustratingly slow. You're investing time and money with no immediate return. That's discouraging. Second, you maintain discipline despite lack of immediate feedback. Third, compound effects start appearing. The asset begins generating income without your constant effort. And fourth, you reach a point where asset income exceeds employment income, and you've broken free from the time for money trap. And here's the part that changes everything. Once you have assets generating income, you're no longer dependent on employment. You can choose work based on what you want to do, not what you need to do to survive. That freedom, true financial freedom, is impossible when your only income source is trading time for money. So here's what you do starting this month. Take 10% of your income and direct it toward building an asset. If you're new to investing, open an index fund account and set up automatic contributions. If you have a business idea, invest in learning and starting small. If you have a skill, create a digital product you can sell repeatedly. Don't wait until you have extra money, build asset creating into your budget now. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people will spend 40 years trading time for money and retire with a pension or social security that doesn't cover their needs. Meanwhile, people who spent those same 40 years building assets retire wealthy and free because they understood that time for money is a transaction, but assets are wealth. The question you need to answer is this. Do you want to spend your life selling hours for dollars, or do you want to build assets that generate income without consuming your time? Because one path has a ceiling determined by available hours. The other path's only ceiling is your creativity and willingness to build. What's coming next reveals the fourth belief difference about money and worth. Chapter 5. Poor mindset believes, I don't deserve wealth. Rich mindset believes, I create value worth paying for. And this difference in how you connect your worth to money determines whether you'll ever feel comfortable having wealth. Here's why this matters. If you unconsciously believe you don't deserve money, you will sabotage every attempt to build it. You'll get close to success and then make decisions that destroy your progress. You'll receive money and then find ways to spend it. Your unconscious mind won't let you keep something it believes you don't deserve. Let me show you what's really happening. You have internalized beliefs about who deserves wealth. Maybe you learned that rich people are greedy, so having money would make you greedy. Maybe you learned that money is the root of evil, so wanting it makes you bad. Maybe you learned that people like you, from your background, your family, your circumstances, don't have wealth. These beliefs operate beneath awareness, sabotaging your success. Pay attention to this part. Deserve has nothing to do with wealth creation. Wealth comes from creating value that others want to pay for. If you solve problems, provide services, or create products that people value, you generate wealth. The question isn't whether you deserve it, it's whether you're creating value. But if you believe you don't deserve wealth, you won't create value at the level required to generate it. Here's what makes unworthiness beliefs so destructive. They're unconscious. You don't think, I don't deserve money. You just notice that whenever you start building wealth, something happens. An unexpected expense. A bad decision. Self-sabotage disguised as bad luck. And you never connect it to your underlying belief that wealth isn't for people like you. Most people develop unworthiness beliefs in childhood. They watched parents struggle and learned, money is hard for us. They heard relatives criticize wealth and learned, rich people are bad and I'm good, so I shouldn't be rich. They experienced shame around poverty and learned, I'm the kind of person who doesn't have money. And those childhood lessons run adult financial lives. This is where things change. You need to separate your identity from your bank account. Having money doesn't make you greedy. How you earn it and what you do with it determines character. Wanting wealth doesn't make you selfish. It means you want options and security. Being from a background without wealth doesn't mean you can't create wealth. It just means you're starting from a different place. Think about two people starting businesses. Poor mindset feels guilty charging what their service is worth because people can't afford that, or I don't deserve to make that much. Rich mindset charges what the value is worth because they understand that value exchange is fair trade, not exploitation. The first person stays broke while being nice. The second person builds wealth while serving customers well. Here's the shift you need to make. Stop connecting your worth as a person to your financial worth. You're not worth more as a human because you have money. But you're also not morally superior because you don't have money. Money is neutral. It's a tool. And believing you deserve to have tools is different from believing you're entitled to things you haven't earned. But there's a critical distinction here. Believing you deserve wealth means believing you deserve to receive fair payment for value you create. It doesn't mean believing you deserve money without creating value. Poor mindset confuses the two. They think accepting that they deserve wealth means accepting entitlement. Rich mindset understands they deserve fair compensation for value provided. Most people won't address unworthiness beliefs because examining them is uncomfortable. It means confronting messages from childhood, maybe even from loved ones. It means admitting that beliefs you've held about money and class and worth might be wrong. That's painful. It's easier to stay broke while maintaining those comfortable beliefs. Here's what happens when you release unworthiness beliefs. First, you notice opportunities to create and charge for value that you were unconsciously avoiding. Second, you receive money without immediately finding ways to spend it because you don't feel guilty having it. Third, you build wealth without self-sabotage because your unconscious mind agrees you deserve it. And fourth, you use wealth in ways aligned with your values, proving that having money doesn't corrupt you. And here's the part that changes everything. When you believe you deserve fair compensation for value you create, you stop undercharging, over-delivering without payment, and working for less than you're worth. You negotiate better. You charge appropriately. You build wealth because you're no longer sabotaging your own success with misplaced guilt. So here's what you do starting today. Write down every negative belief you have about wealthy people or about people from your background having wealth. Be honest. Then ask, is this true about all wealthy people or am I generalizing? What evidence contradicts this belief? Could I have wealth while maintaining my values? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Many people use moral judgment about wealth as a defense mechanism. If rich people are bad, then staying broke is virtuous. It's a comfortable story that absolves you of responsibility for your financial situation. But that comfort costs you your future because you can't build what you believe you don't deserve. The question you need to answer is this. Do you believe you deserve fair compensation for value you create? Because if the answer is no, you'll sabotage every attempt at wealth. If the answer is yes, you need to start acting like it, charging appropriately, keeping money you earn, and building wealth without guilt. Your mindset determines your financial reality. Change the mindset and reality follows.